The United States wants Cuba dark. China just installed 20,000 solar panels to make sure it isn't. Cuba is living through blackouts of up to 20 hours a day. Not 2, not 5, 20. Refrigerators dead. Hospitals running on generators. Water pumps offline because there's no power to run them. And the reason isn't some natural disaster or a failure of Cuban infrastructure alone, it's engineered. A United States oil blockade has cut fuel imports to the island by nearly 90%. Tankers turned away. Financial threats issued against any nation that dares sell Cuba oil. This is not an accident of geography. This is a deliberate policy of scarcity aimed at a population that has nothing to do with the politics being punished. And into that engineered darkness, China walked in. Not with warships, not with tariffs, with solar panels. While one government spent its energy trying to starve an island into submission, another spent its energy, literally, trying to keep the lights on. That contrast is the entire story here. Same island, same crisis, two completely opposite responses from two competing global powers. One weaponizes energy, the other weaponizes solar panels for the opposite purpose. Let's get specific, because the scale of this is bigger than most headlines are giving it credit for. 10,000 solar kit systems donated for homes and public buildings. 5,000 systems specifically routed to critical facilities, maternity homes, nursing homes, polyclinics, emergency rooms, even funeral homes and municipal radio stations, so essential services don't go dark during the worst outages. And another 5,000 kits for rural isolated homes, some of which have never had electricity in their entire existence. Not solar as a luxury upgrade. Solar as a first connection to modern life for people the grid simply never reached. This isn't a one-off donation ceremony for a press photo. This is triage infrastructure built for a country under active economic siege. But the household kits are actually the smaller part of the story. The bigger transformation is happening at the grid level. In just 12 months, Cuba connected 49 new solar parks to its national electric system, adding over 1,000 megawatts of capacity, financed and equipped largely by China. One of those sites, the Escuela de Enfermería Solar Park in Havana alone, contains over 42,000 panels. The result? Cuba's solar share of total power generation nearly tripled in a single year, from under 6% to over 20%. In February, the country hit a record over 900 megawatts generated from solar in a single afternoon. And the plan doesn't stop there. Cuba and China are targeting 92 solar parks completed by 2028, adding roughly 2 full gigawatts of capacity to the grid. That's not disaster relief. That's an energy system being rebuilt from the ground up, in real time, under sanctions. And follow the money further, because this is where it gets interesting. In January, Xi Jinping personally signed off on $80 million in emergency financial aid for Cuban electrical equipment, alongside a separate donation of 60,000 tons of emergency rice. Personally approved. Not a mid-level ministry decision buried in a press release, a head of state signature on aid to a country the United States is actively trying to isolate. Why would Beijing spend that kind of political and financial capital on a small Caribbean island with a fraction of a % of global GDP? Because energy independence for Cuba is a rehearsal. It's a live demonstration 90 miles from Florida of an alternative to American-controlled fuel dependency, battery storage, solar hardware, financing, technical crews, all supplied by China. All bypassing sanctions that were built for a fossil fuel world, not a solar one. Here's the part that should actually concern policymakers in Washington. Solar panels aren't oil tankers. You can't blockade sunlight. You can't threaten tariffs against a country for installing panels the way you can threaten a country for selling crude. The sanctions regime built over 60 years to pressure Cuba through energy scarcity is being quietly routed around. Not through defiance, but through a technology shift the blockade was never designed to counter. And every solar park China finances, every kit installed in a home that never had power, isn't just an act of goodwill. It's a foothold, technical dependency, diplomatic goodwill, infrastructure influence in America's own backyard, built one panel at a time, while the United States policy of pressure produces the opposite of its intended effect. It pushes Cuba further into Beijing's orbit, not further into isolation. So ask yourself, who actually controls the future of energy in the Western Hemisphere? Not the country holding the blockade, the country holding the solar panels. This is the story behind the story. Follow for more.